Hello and welcome everybody to Mann's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet, the inaugural episode. So I'm not sure if anybody else will be joining tonight. It's just getting it all set up. I'm pleased at least the intro video worked, which is a good thing. So the idea of this is basically to have a little bit of a round table on a weekly basis, invite different people in and have a chat about whatever. So very similar to how we do on Airfix and Chill, but on a Wednesday. So Wednesday is a bit of an odd time, bit of a nothing day in a lot of ways. It's halfway through the week, half of it's gone, half still to go. Weekend's a bit further on, so I thought it would be a good time. Plus, of course, I can use midweek, which is another M, so I can have 6 M's. So that's another reason to have it on a Wednesday. And as far as I'm aware, and I could be completely wrong, please let me know if I am, there isn't an awful lot else on a Wednesday in terms of modelling broadcasts. So John Alec used to do something on a Wednesday, but I had to sort of step back from that a little while ago. And he, of course, has an open invite to this as part of the panel, as do all the other regulars that you might see. Hopefully we can get some more people from across the pond. So with seniors passing, Hobby Barn, I didn't know senior at all. But with that happening and all of the kind of tribute builds and activity that's gone on around that, I have got to know a couple of the guys involved in that kind of circle. It's a very different type of modeling circle, the kind of US car modelers. So I'm hoping to get some of them in from time to time, and also learn a lot from them, because I'm not a natural model car builder. I have built a couple in the past before, but haven't built an awful lot. And I do have a few down here. I'm looking because I'm surrounded by kits. So one of the things that, so the kind of topic for tonight, if you like, kind of follows on from the theme that I had with my video last Tuesday, which is what is the best model company in the world? Now, obviously, I do have the final video, fingers crossed, coming out on Saturday, but I thought it might be a good opportunity to get some more thoughts on what actually makes a good model company, what makes one model company better than others. So I think if you want to put in the chat, if anybody has any particular ideas on this. Oh, hi, John Oak. Well, you made it into the chat, if nothing else. You must have heard your ears burning, as I was mentioning you before. So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts and want to put it in the chat, then we can put it up. And if anybody comes in onto the stream, then we can have a bit more discussion about it. But obviously, I've been kind of putting in quite a lot of work into how I've assessed how, what makes the best model company. But really thought I'd kind of open that up to what other people think. And I say I'm surrounded by kits here because I've been doing lots of, I've got literally a huge bunch of pieces of plastic here. There's a hardness testing meter, so I've tested the hardness. And of course, you have to do multiple times. You can't just do one reading, right? So, and then you've got to try and measure on the same types of pieces, the same planes, and do multiple readings to be able to get averages. It's quite interesting. I think going along, I didn't have any particular preconceived ideas about, who would win. But when I was thinking about some of these things, kind of what does make a kit good, never mind about a company, but what makes a model kit good, and how can you kind of put that into measurable values? Because being a sort of scientist, as I've mentioned many times by training, you're kind of trained to think, how do you measure something? You might have an idea. Something might be obvious, say obvious, but how do you show that to somebody else? And I think anybody who is involved in AI um, kind of understands, or in computer programming in general, actually, because computers know nothing, right? They are just a reduction engine. They follow a set of parameters of programs. So there's nothing intuitive about them at all. So you have to describe everything in laborious detail in code. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Going through that process of, well, how do you evaluate what might be intuitive, but a lot of people have, you know, intuitive ideas and kind of might agree, but there's also personal bias that comes in there, confirmation bias, all these other things. So if you measure something, it should tell you what most people kind of know, but in some sort of quantifiable manner, right? I don't know if you can, John Alec. You're welcome to step into the whatever you call this room, chat, forum, celebrity squares, or whatever that is, if you wish. So Fenris, so Bandai, tooling, manufacture, design, and engineering the best. You see, it's a really good point, right? Because we all think of model kits and we think about, this plastic that we have. How is it made? What are the good parts of that? And that's kind of what I've been doing over the past week, is a lot of measurement about, well, what makes that good? And as opposed to this, which of these is better and how and why? And there are things you can measure, So if you think about the bad things about a kit, and it's often easier to look at this backwards. So a lot of scientific theory, right, is you come up with a hypothesis and you try to disprove it. That's how it works. You don't try and prove a theory, you try and disprove it. And you keep doing that until you can't disprove it. And then it's like, well, that must be the answer. That's kind of the way it works. So if you took something like this, the old fairy Rotodyne, I think, well, why is this bad? It's kind of easier to work from that, right? If I take this, and you can look at some of the things which are awful about this, right, which make it hard. Massive injection gates. Right? You can see here, this connection here. You've got a single point, and it's huge, right? Which means that when one, it's a single point, so it's one point of weakness. It's massive, so when you cut it off, it's going to need a lot of cleaning up. Same with all of these. So single attachment points, quite large gates. There's flash, pin ejector marks, big pin ejector marks. All of that, of course, you can measure. The plastic, what are the properties of the plastic? How hard is it? How does it react to glue? How flexible is it? Because you don't want it to be brittle so that something just snaps rather than having a bit of flex to it. So that starts to give you those ideas about, well, these are the things that we can measure, right? The tooling kind of is part of that. So you can't produce this without a tool. The plastic obviously is what goes into it and what forms this product, but it's an impression of what the tool is. And all of that, of course, comes through a lot of the design and engineering. And then, of course, you got what I went through in the first video back last Tuesday, bit limited by the subjects, and that's it, right? So a lot of the reason that we don't tend to think of Bandai in the West, unless you particularly are into Gundam, is because they just do Gundam, and slightly related things, but it's almost 99% Gundam. So most of us who aren't into that don't even think about Bandai as being a model company. Same for Games Workshop, right? If you're not into 40K, not into Age of Sigmar or any of the other games, it's unlikely. I'm going to sneeze. excuse me, it's unlikely you're going to think about them as a first, this is the best model company there is. And exactly as Dan said, it limits the market exposure, right? So yeah, engineering, the prototype accuracy, the instruction quality. That's a good point. So it's no good having a model, which is fantastic if the instructions, let me just grab these. Hang on, I'm burning on the old Airfix Rotodyne here, but it's not really its fault. Now these are kind of updated instructions, but that in terms of clarity and stuff isn't bad. But something like this, which has very clear, things, uses color to pull out particular points, has sprue tree diagrams. I can get a page which has a sprue tree diagram, stuff like this. All of those things add up. So, and what you'll see when the video comes out is obviously the companies that score highest tend to do more than one thing pretty well. So it's no good just to make really good models if you put them in a crap box and nobody can actually see it on the shelves, and your company's got a bad reputation for other things. I don't know what that might be. And when you build it, it's not accurate. Yeah. Likewise, it's no good having an accurate kit, which is fantastic in terms of detail, if it's an absolute mare to put together and the instructions are garbage. So you tend to find that a lot of these things will add together. And yeah, there'll be some companies that do one thing, really well, but how well are they covering all the other pieces? And to me, I think that's what makes a company the best, is that it's giving you a consistent experience. It's giving you, a consistent, good experience, right? In broad overall events. It might not be the best in absolutely every single one. There may be companies which are out there which are better in certain elements, but those companies don't cover the other elements well. So, and I think that's one of the things that came through, especially from the comments from the first video, when people were saying, "Oh, outrage! Edward isn't included. Where's Edward? Where's Edward?" Edward do 95% aircraft. So if you're not an aircraft modeler, then no use to you. No use to Man the Beast. So I may actually do a follow-up. I was thinking about this earlier today. But actually, it could be quite easy, once you've got all these parameters kind of sorted out, I might do, who is the best aircraft model company? Who is the best? I mean, you can categorize it quite easily then, who's the best AFV company, who's the best whatever, because you just take those same criteria and you apply them across there, and then you can include, the Edwards, Dora Wings, all those other companies that can't compete on a more, general, broad, global stage, but they can in their particular niche, and that might produce some slightly different results. As you'll see in the video, I hope you'll watch it. There are areas that all of these, there is no one company, I can tell you that, no one company scores highest in everything. That is just not something that has happened. I didn't expect it to. And actually, if you've seen some of my reviews of other kits, if you've seen my reviews for the companies and the kind of releases and stuff, you can tell that, right? There isn't one company that does everything perfectly. Some of the more modern companies, a lot of Chinese companies, Eastern European companies, they don't have the stability of some of the other, like old Japanese, like Hasegawa. Hasegawa is an incredibly stable company, as a lot of Japanese companies are. That can sometimes make them a little bit staid. a little bit safe. So that might not be, they might not be pushing the boat out. Those new innovative, Chinese companies like Takom and Meng Model, going hell for leather on some of this stuff, producing a lot of kits, producing really nice kits, but they don't have the provenance. Will they be around in 10 years? Probably, but we don't really have the evidence to support that yet. So hopefully all of that comes in. Just looking through the comments here. Hello to everybody that's in the chat and said hello. There's too many to call out individually. Apologies. Sinzan. I don't know who I don't know who Sue's stream was. But that sounds good. I missed it completely. Okie dokie. So what I think I will do in future episodes is obviously when we have people coming in, and I know when there'll be people coming in, I'd like to ask them what they would like to discuss. And I think also I'd like to ask all of you guys, what would you like us to discuss? If we've got, a panel of, even if it's fairly small, like 2, 3, 4 of us, what would you like us to talk about? Because I think sometimes subjects can be quite specific to times of the year. So we are still waiting. I keep looking every day for the Hobby Boss Trumpeter catalogue. You can get it in China right now, physical copies. I've looked on eBay because when you do the search, obviously the eBay searches come up and show you. You can buy a physical Trumpeter catalogue, Hobby Boss catalogue today. Takes about 14 days to ship. So I haven't, because I'm just like, well, it'll come out in PDF, I'm sure. This time last year, it had already been out for 2 weeks. It was the end of February, which it typically is. But we'll see. Hopefully in the next couple of days, they're going to be releasing their catalogs. As soon as they do, I'll get a video together and go through those, because I think a lot of people are interested in what Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, I Love Kit, and the whole Zhongsheng Gatai group of companies are doing. And yeah, I agree, Matt. It blows my mind that physical print catalogs need to be purchased as well. I mean, even as a retailer, when I got the new price list from Airfix, the very first thing in it was the catalog, and it's like, it's not cheap, to a retailer. Even you make very little on most things, but catalogs really not. And it's like, why am I going to invest money? I still have probably 6 catalogs from last year unsold. Now, I must say, I didn't buy them. My local rep gave them to me, but I think I sold one. I sold one physical catalog, and I was surprised that I sold that. I mean, in every other industry, catalogs are given, as a way of selling kits. I think it's a little bit weird. I agree. Just a quick question to Matt, John, Alec, Fenris. Did that invite work? John Alec, join you in 10 minutes. Okay. Please do let me know, because I don't know whether I've set it up correctly. This is the first time I've actually done a stream and invited people. So I don't know whether it's just, people are busy. Wednesday's an odd day. I get all of that. Or if it's just I screwed it up, which is quite possible, right? I have no illusions about my familiarity with StreamYard or ability to be able to get this together. Yeah, I do agree, Sinzan. And I think especially in the 21st century. I mean, we're not just in the 21st century. We're almost a quarter of the way through, right? The internet is a big thing. It's been a big thing for a long time. I mean, a PDF catalog is so easy to produce. Um, I did have some comments actually on some of my other videos, especially the Revell one, about, oh, the quality of your pictures is awful. It's like, well, blame Revell. That's what they had in their catalog. It's like, I could go back on the video and redo the video with the pictures that they now have on the website. That's not the point, you know. But yeah, they could have put better quality photos in the PDF. I get it, but you know, the point is to show you what's there, not to give you, you know, intricate detail that someone's going to blow up on a 1080p monitor. It's like it gets you. They're hooks, right? Catalogs are hooks. They're supposed to grab your interest, and I think for a physical thing now, I mean, print media is a fairly specialized, quite archaic thing now. If you think about the model magazines, which are mainly replaced by, well, forums and blogs in sort of from 2005-ish, sort of mid noughties onwards, and then from probably 5 to 10 years ago, sites like YouTube have really taken over from that. You know, you can get more interaction, and of course streams as well from YouTube, from Twitch, from whatever. So again, I think a failure to recognize that and to respond to it, and a lot of companies, I think, you know, your Revells, your Airfix stuff, haven't really responded that well to that. And again, it's some of the younger companies who are doing, you know, more of that. We'll have to see how it turns out in the next, you know, 5 years or so. Okay, so we have 55 in the stream on the moment. So those of you who were expecting to see more people, I believe others will be joining shortly. Hi, John Parker. Again, you're welcome to join at any time. Actually, John Parker, I'm not sure if you will have seen the invite. It's in the Discord server a little bit further up. I think I did put a reminder in earlier tonight. Sinzan, I suspect that a happy balance can be drawn with catalogs. It's a fair bet that many would access this online, especially the younger contingent, but I suspect that us oldies might prefer a book. I mean, there is something to be said for a physical, you know, something that you can hold in your hands. I'm not sure a catalog is it, unless you've got a specific interest in collecting those things as part of, you know, history and stuff. I couldn't give a damn myself. I mean, I don't know what other people think about this. It'd be nice actually if you could put it in the chat. Do you value a physical printed catalog? I think especially with okay, I'm gonna Moss isn't on, is he? Airfix, I think, kind of screwed themselves a little bit with the Airfix catalog, right? Because they are now putting a catalog out, a release out in January, quite early, and now we know that that is not complete, right? So there's probably, I'm going to say, a minimum of 3, probably a maximum of 5 unannounced releases that are going to be going through the year. And they're not going to be in the catalog, obviously, because that would spoil the surprise. So any catalog that you buy from Airfix now is not complete. That's a bizarre situation to be in, right? I mean, if you're on the ball, a PDF catalog can be updated through the year. I don't know whether they'll do that. I suspect they won't. I'm not even sure you can get a PDF catalog, can you, from Airfix? But yeah, it's a bizarre kind of thing to have a physical piece of media which you know is outdated as soon as it's published. I'm not sure they fully thought that one through. Okay, so somebody is agreeing with Dan Usher there, so I need to see what Dan Usher put. Books are good for the Fortress of Solitude reading. They are, but is a catalogue, does that fall into that? I'll give you an opinion about print media magazines, right? And I think they fall into, and I can't remember who said this about cookery books. I think that, especially these days, a print magazine, model magazine, takes the same space for modelers now as a cookbook, and particularly a cookbook of 10 years ago, right? Most people don't read cookbooks, right? I am one of the few people that have actually got some cookbooks that actually I've used. But most of us, and actually most of my cookbooks, most of the recipes in there, it's like porn, right? It's food porn. We don't actually buy them to cook those recipes because you can get those recipes on the internet at any time, right? But sometimes it's nice to pick up a book and look through and look about what you could make and just browse and look at the pictures of this beautiful food, right? And sometimes I think nowadays, model magazines kind of fall into that same thing. You're not looking at the magazines for techniques. You're not looking at the magazines for, which airbrush to buy, or what is the hottest sandpaper or whatever. Because you can go onto YouTube or onto a forum, onto Reddit or whatever, and find that out in seconds, right? And do a lot more research and get a much broader, wider array of opinion than one guy in a magazine talking about it. But it's sometimes nice just to sit, you're in bed and you're just browsing through and looking at nice pictures of Messerschmitts or Cromwells or civilian airliners or whatever it is that you particularly like, right? Don't talk about football. That's a terrible thing to do. No worries, John. No worries, John. Not at all. Tonight, as I said, is the inaugural episode, so it was really just me testing the technology to make sure it all works, which I'm not too sure because until I get somebody in, I can't be 100% sure that it works. But the intro video worked. We went on time, so that's two wins. If I can get a third, then I'll be good for tonight. But yeah, enjoy your early evening, and hopefully see you again on another one. Yeah, I kind of agree, Puel. I apologize if I said that incorrectly as well. It's probably Pavel, but yeah, I mean, even if a PDF isn't online for decades, right? You can just save it, and it's what, 50 to 100 kilobytes, maybe. I mean, you could store literally billions of catalogs on a hard drive. So it's not like it's like some really heavy document which is going to clog up your computer, not at all. Books are really good, but not these ones which I read at the moment, Dan. I'm not sure which books you're reading, Dragon Queen. Read better books if you don't like the ones. Off-topic question to anyone here. Can I use normal car spray primer for models? Yes. Yes, you can. So the proviso is it depends what sort of primer, right? So don't buy high build primer because it's designed to fill in small imperfections, which is not what you want on a model, right? The other thing is actually you can often use just car spray, so a matte black spray, for instance, or a matte white spray, because again, it's not designed, it's quite hot, right? So it'll bind to the plastic, it'll act as a primer, but it's not designed to fill in anything, so it'll just be a thin layer. I would say try different brands. Halford's actually is pretty good. Obviously, it's a UK brand. Autotech, I use Autotech quite a lot. I sell Autotech in the shop. It's pretty reasonable. Comes in big, like 400, 600 ml cans, I think, for like a tenner. And it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty fine grain. It's not like the high build primer. I think Halfords do a yellow, like a yellowy one, which is like filler primer. You don't want that. But otherwise, yes. Cheap spray cans, generally not. But then cheap spray cans generally don't do primer. Rust-Oleum, I think in the US, is used by a lot of modelers as well. But I mean, dedicated spray primer from model companies, generally speaking, you're just paying over the odds for something, right? Okie dokie. Just going down comments, sorry. This is a good point. Like Airfix and the magazine. I used to keep it in the car, so if parked, you can get the magazine out. But if it goes digital, grab your phone and you'll get a damn copper trying to nick you using your phone. So I don't object to magazines. So I think they have their place. I think printed catalogs, I mean, once you've looked through it, right? For me, it's kind of a one and done. You know, you look at it, you see what's coming, you know what you're excited about. That's kind of it. You can get better pictures online if you really want to go and look at it when they come out. Those kits, you can look at YouTube videos, you can look at forums, all of things like Brit Modeler, you know, or was it the Scale Model News? Will have pictures of the sprues and stuff. So, you know, a catalog, I think, is just such an ephemeral thing. It's such a mayfly of a publication that, as I say, unless you want to collect them, and I get that, I completely get that. But if I were a collector, I would buy my catalogs at the end of the year when they're cheap. People are selling them off, trying to get rid of them. You know, you're not going to run out. You're not going to, you know, there's not going to be a dearth of them. You'll find a catalog somewhere. If anybody wants a 2023 Airfix catalog, I've got plenty. But other than that, I don't really see the point. Catalog can be a faithful calendar to future releases for one who likes to follow and build and manufacture. Yeah, but again, you could get the same from a PDF, couldn't you? You know, as again, if you want to do the physical one, yeah, that's fine. But I'm not sure it's giving you much more over a PDF. I mean, you could even, if you want to like cross out the ones you've done, you can print a PDF, right? These days, actually, it's not that expensive to print in full color, even at a print shop, right? This is talking about cookbooks, right? So again, I think cookbooks are the same. So some people still use cookbooks, right? But I'm talking broad spectrum, right? Most people, when I say most, it's like a population. It is, you know, again, it's the scientific, it's the Gaussian, you know, distribution. It's like you get this solid core of, you know, 95% of a Gaussian distribution is in 1.96 sigma, you know, that broad range. Then you've got little outliers here. Most people who cook from cookbooks are in those little outlier bits, right? Most people, well, again, I don't have stats and figures, but you can find this fairly easily, I'm sure, going online. They're going to get their phone, right? I know I do when, you know, I want to check a recipe, even one I've made before, cocktails, you know, usually because I've been drinking before or after I have to make cocktails. So it's just like, oh, how do I make a margarita? What's the exact proportions I need for a sweet margarita? I think it's 2 to 1 to 1 in terms of tequila, lime juice, and agave, but I just better check just in case I've swapped one of those rounds. I'm not going to go and get a cocktail book out. I've got some cocktail books. I'm going to use my phone because it takes seconds, right? I think in the same way, most people will go to their phone. And again, your phone's convenient, right? It's right there. A book, you have to open it to the right page. You have to find the recipe to start with. And I, for years, right, used Delia Smith's Christmas book for cooking. The traditional British, turkey roast and the trimmings that we particularly liked and the other bits. And I would still miss those things, when I I'd have to put like little post-it notes and everything to get the right pages at Christmas, because I only use it once a year, and you remember it's somewhere at the front, but I'm not quite sure where. And when you put it away, you don't want all the bits sticking out. So, but it was a pain actually using it to cook because it gets covered in, flour and ingredients and bits. You've got to prop it open at the right pages. You've got to flick between them and everything. Whereas, getting a phone out, it's just easier. And then the other point is, of course, the cost. Yeah. Now, John Alec, welcome.
How you doing, buddy?
It works. The system works.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've achieved my 3 points for the night. Do you buy catalogs?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't even look at them. But I do own cookbooks. I've got this big shelf here that's mostly all models, and the only books I have is there's an entire row of cookbooks at the bottom because they tend to be really big and heavy and massive. So I've got them on the bottom, and my military books. So yeah, I buy cookbooks, and look at cookbooks. But yeah,
do you use them to cook with?
I do.
Okay.
Especially this one, the barbecue.
Well, is that cooking? Is barbecuing really cooking?
I don't know. You'll leave the table pretty happy. I mean, no, not really. It's just grilling. And then, I've got a few barbecue books, spice books. We have a lot of course, my wife is Asian, so we have a lot of Asian cooking cookbooks. She doesn't touch them. She will go online. She'll sit here. We just have the one computer, and she'll go online and she'll find recipes that she likes, and she keeps them and collates them. But she's always looking for like a new recipe that she uses. So yeah. But not catalogs. No, I can't say I even look at them.
You mentioned military books there. Now, I have a lot of military books, some of which are actually at my ex's, which I really need to get back. I think military books have much more place than anything we've talked about before, because it's easy to get research on the internet, right? But I do find military books have way more photos, way more period photos, and way more everything, actually, than you can find online. In fact, I've often looked for things I know I have in a book and been unable to find them on the internet. Do you find that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the books I have are for reading, right? So, I mean, they'll have some pictures in the middle of the book, right? But they're primarily for reading. But I do have large picture books. And you're absolutely right. In those, there's, because, I've looked through them probably 3 or 4 times. There's pictures in those that I've never seen online, ever. I've only seen them in those books. So I agree with your point.
Yeah. I think as well, browse, and I know we're going, we haven't started on our topic yet, but I find browsing through a lot of the books that I've got, even ones which are very specific to, like Tiger One, for instance, I'll go through and I'll see pictures, and I know I've seen them before, but it'll inspire me in a particular way.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I know I've got a Tiger One, which I did. I need to finish it at some point. Probably come on the channel in some form or other in the future. But it's a Tiger One that's having a track changed, and they've
Oh,
got
okay.
the track laid out, and there's a couple of the guys, going and like, and it's just like, which I'd never seen before, but I saw that and thought that's a great like mini diorama. It's a great way to display a tiger, which isn't, it's not wrecked. It's not just like the crew are just like on it or whatever. Um, so I think books are great for that kind of thing, just general inspiration, just like browsing through and think, how am I going to do this? So you're looking through and you just see a couple of pictures and you think, oh yeah, that's the one.
Cool.
And I
Yeah.
think that's sometimes harder to do on the internet. I don't know.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. And those, the tiger tracks, they were super wide, and
Yeah,
those links must have weighed. I have no idea what a Tiger One track link weighed, but they must have been. I mean, trying to work those things, right? So they had they had the pioneering tools, right? So they had that
yeah.
basically a lever, right? And then they would do that, but you don't see a lot of pictures of that. So I don't know if that didn't happen very often, or they were all just busy working and nobody was taking a picture of them.
Probably it. This was actually in a town, so I think it may have been like somebody took a picture of it happening rather than
Okay,
the crew. So,
from the crew, yeah,
um, but yeah, I mean, those things, if you think it's what, I don't know, must be like 3 feet wide or 2.5 feet wide or something.
something
And
like
it's just
that.
a big piece of steel, isn't it? Just solid piece of steel.
Yep.
So we had a local Wincanton History Day last Saturday, right? So we had a couple of scorpions like drive up and down the road, a lot of vintage cars, people in all kinds of old dress. I actually looked at, oh, maybe I'll get like a World War II uniform. Um, I've still got all my grandfather's badges from when he was in the Royal Engineers, and I thought if I could get a British Army uniform from the time. They don't do many in my size. Most of them are like 36-inch chest, like 30-inch waist or less, and it's just like, yeah, these were young guys and they were fit.
Yeah,
It's like I haven't had a 30-inch waist for 30 years. So, so I abandoned the idea after a while. I just thought, because they either go that size, right? The next sizes you tend to get are like 44-inch waist and like massive chest, and it's like, so these are all the generals that are like just sitting behind desks.
the armchair folks. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And there's no in between. There's no like I guess now like the middle class, middle aged, fairly sedentary, but good life. Doesn't but exercises a little bit. There's none of that. There's either you work like a trooper or you sit behind a desk. There's,
Yep,
there's nothing else.
that's funny. Yeah, gosh, a 30-inch waist. Geez, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So what do you think what would make a company good or bad for you, John?
Um, Not so much customer service because I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had to deal a lot with customer service. Here in the States at Tamiya USA, they're exceptionally good about getting you spare stuff that you need. So,
Mhm.
and I've done that twice now. And I'll put in you can go to their website and you put in a little request, and that guy, I think his name's Brian, and he gets back to me like literally that day. And both times they've like, yep, we got it. Just give me your address. I'll send it out to you. I didn't even have to pay. It was great. But um, that's really the only company I've had to deal with. So that's really not a factor. Um, I like, if you've got a one, two, new exciting releases per year, that's great. I'm not a real stash builder, right? So I tend to get what I know I'm going to try to build in the near future. Whereas some people, um, the hobby is buying kits, right? They
Yeah.
they have a huge stash, and I don't. So that's one thing. Uh, quality of the plastic is important to me. So like flat, if it's an old tool, and I'll know, if I'm buying something that is an older tooling, and I know, okay, yeah, it's probably going to have some flash. But if it's new, I'm expecting really nice plastic.
Yeah.
If it's a tooling that's, say, like less than 10 years old. I do like a variety. I I started out just doing armor, when I got back into the hobby, like 2007. And I've really kind of branched out into other genres. And so,
Yeah.
a company that does a, like a lot of different stuff. For cars, I tend to buy cars from specific vendors. But armor and planes, it's kind
I
of
was going to say,
anything.
is that because I was thinking about this, and some people kind of commented on my initial video about, breadth of range. Is that an important thing? Is that more important than, just a small company producing really good stuff? And one of the things I was thinking is just like there are two elements to it to me. One is range in terms of, if you like, visibility. So if you think about one of the comments was about Revell specifically, and it's just
Okay.
like, well, is a broad range good if you've got, a bit of a dodgy reputation? Let's call it that. And it's like, well, the thing is, Revell has an enormous range of stuff. So you can get cars, you can get space, you can get aircraft, you can get boats, you can get all kinds of weird and wonderful things from Revell. And if you've had good experiences with Revell, because they do make some good kits and they do retool, or not retool, they rebox, some good kits.
I agree.
And if you know and trust that name, Tamiya is another example. Tamiya do a wide range, and if you know and trust Tamiya, the fact that they do a broad range of subjects to me means, well, I trust the Tamiya kit, so I know if I'm going to buy. I've never done a car before, but I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to buy it from Tamiya because then I know kind of what I'm getting,
Yeah.
or that's the kind of belief I have. So I don't know. What do you think that's? Do you think it's valid, or do you think it's more important that you go and specialize and think, well, I'm going to buy a car, so I'll do research and find out the best car companies, and then go and do that.
I tend to do that. So I think if you have a niche market, great. Great. So if you don't have a broad catalog, so you're not doing all kinds of stuff. Let's say you're just doing like like World War I. So an example. So Copper State models.
Mm.
I think universally people find Copper State models, especially their manuals, they're great. They're very interesting. The plastic is good. The molds are really good. The variety of kits they make within that specific genre are
Mm.
really high quality, right? So you're gonna consider Copper State models if you want a World War I, like, sort of armored car or an airplane, right? Um, but that's very niche. And
Yeah,
so,
it's very niche.
and so, yeah, I agree. To me, when I think of to me, it's motorcycles, cars, and some of their tanks, and some of those tanks that I would, some are some of those toolings are old. I mean, that Comet was just absolutely fantastic. So when they do come out with some new stuff, it's great. And then for armor, there's other companies. So like Mini Art, ICM, and Tamiya.
Well, now you have Meng and Tacom and
That's
you know
true.
Hobby Boss. There's kind of a huge number of players.
Yeah. I've just discovered Hobby Boss and I absolutely love them. Love the plastic. Love the instructions are good. You get a lot of kit for the money. I found.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that it's some companies, they're just niche. They're really good at what they do and they're fantastic. But I think that companies that have just my 2 cents, companies that have a really broad range that appeal to a variety of sort of skill levels, right? There's always something more clever than ourselves, and
Yeah.
so there's going to be that range. And so a company like Revell, like Airfix, I like Tamiya, where they have a whole range of sort of skill level type models. That's appealing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think so. And I think, we often talk about how do we bring other people into the hobby? How do you get broad appeal? And, model shops aren't as prevalent as they used to be.
Mhm.
But where you do go to a model shop, generally, you're going to be able to find those big manufacturers, right? The Airfix, Revels, and Tamiyas. Because, and I can say this now from a retail perspective, but I mean, Copper State models, I don't even know who distributes them in the UK. So, I mean, and I do a fairly broad range. I mean, I can get Zokamura, I can get Aoshima, I can get a lot of fairly small, fairly niche manufacturers. But unless you're dealing with an importer that has a broad range, so I've recently actually getting an account with Amarang, who import Hasegawa, they import Aurora, and AMT, a lot of the American kind of, if you like, the old retoolers.
Yeah.
They do some of these specialized sci-fi kits and things. But unless you're dealing with somebody who does import all of those, if you have to deal with the individual companies and their niche, that's a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Because ideally, in an ideal world, as a retailer, you'd want one supplier that can supply everything.
Mhm.
Because you've got the same terms and conditions, you've got one spend with one company, so you build up credit rating quickly with them and all those kinds of things. If you're dealing with 20 or 30, it becomes a nightmare, right? Because they all have minimum orders. You don't want to spend 150 or 250 pounds or $300 or whatever with 30 different companies just to get your
Right.
shop stocked.
Right.
And that reflects in what's actually stocked in a shop. And so that's why you tend to find Revell everywhere. It's why you tend to get Airfix kits. It's why you tend to get these larger manufacturers. And if they don't have that broad range, you're not going to be bringing people into the hobby. So I think it's often seen as a kind of an old-fashioned, more like a negative thing. And I think as experienced modelers, we can get a little bit blinkered into, well, I like this and they're the best because they do, like, I'll use Edward again as an example, but they just do aircraft, right? So it's like, yeah, they do some fantastic aircraft of a particular, they don't do actually many subjects. They do a few things a lot. Like if you want a 109, a 190, a MiG-21, or anything World War One, yeah, they're really good. If you want to start going a little bit more esoteric, then it gets a bit more hit and miss. So I do think it's sometimes we don't do well at thinking about not just ourselves, but what are the broader, what are the ship modelers looking for? What is somebody who doesn't even know what they want looking for? And I think that might be slightly different to somebody who's been in the hobby for, 10 years or
Right.
is returning to it like we have.
Good
Uh,
points.
Interesting that you mentioned sort of customer service as well. So in the video I've got coming out, I haven't considered customer service at all. And I'm sure people will mention it. But the thing is, talking about, as a fellow scientist, you will know, how do you measure that, right?
Mhm.
How do you measure quality, the experience? I mean, for one thing, customer service is an experience-based thing. Unless
Absolutely.
you've got surveys on all of those companies, it's anecdotal, right? So I haven't included that at all. And for me, customer service it's a failure point, right? It's a second line of defense. Ideally, a retail customer shouldn't have to engage with customer service ever.
Correct.
It's when things go wrong that they have to engage with customer service, right?
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think customer service is not something. It should be good when you engage with it,
Mm-hmm.
but you shouldn't have to engage with it. So
Correct.
So I think good customer service is merely getting you back up to zero, right?
And when they can do that, it makes you feel good. It leaves a good impression. Again, both times, to me, and I have zero relationship with any manufacturer whatsoever. But both times, I had either one, I lost the part, and two, I ruined the part, and so I call it completely. Hey, can I buy this part? And both times they have, like, within 24 hours, they put it in the mail for me, free of charge, and so I'm extremely grateful for it. And I get on streams like this and say, hey, to me, it did this. This is great. I really appreciated it. So yeah.
But I think you do tend to get that. I can't remember what bias it is. I have a slide that I've used in presentations in my corporate past about. I can't remember how many there are. There's at least 20 biases, all the different biases. And one of them goes through that. It's like, because with customer service, it tends to be digital, right? It tends to skew out to the two ends. People generally report exceptional service. So like yourself, like when somebody's gone above and beyond, you're just like, that was really good, and gives you that really good feeling. And then you're likely then, if prompted generally, so most people, again, the bell-shaped curve, most people just like, that was really good, and that's it.
Yeah.
If that person then says, and this is often why you get asked, when you're at customer services, would you mind filling in a short survey afterwards? Because that's the time that you'll actually be like, oh yeah, of course, because I feel great, I'll do that. The other skew of it is negative. So if you have a bad experience, you want to tell people about it because you want to get it off your chest. It's cathartic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, Jesus, have you, I had, Tamiya had this, and they did this, and, Revell did that, Airfix did this, and it's the internet's an easy place to troll, right? To go and do that.
That was the driest sandwich I've ever had. Right.
Yeah. No mayo, 0 stars.
You're right. People are more often, they're gonna, if they have anything negative of Centerline, they might be inclined to get online and fuss about it, right?
Yeah.
But to take that time to get online and go, hey, these guys are absolutely fantastic, they're 5-star. That probably is pretty rare. Yeah.
Well, and the people that go on, oh, I interacted with customer service today, it was okay. I think there were 0 people doing that, right?
0.
5 out of 10 stars. Unless you're actually asking people specifically, or you can't check out unless you do this. You're never going to get that, right? It's like, yeah, it was all right. I feel so compelled by my average experience. I'm going to go online and tell people about it.
That's funny.
Just having a quick look at the comments here in chat. Always difficult to go back and see and try and pick
They've
things
been
out.
busy. I've been seeing it scroll up this whole time we've been talking. So
that does, as long as they're not asking us questions and that people think we're ignoring them, otherwise we'll get a 0 out of 10 stars.
Engaged in the.
This is a good one. Yeah. Restarting modeling after a break of 40 years. Amazed how much modeling has changed. Variety paints especially. So I think it's a really good point. And I think, again, especially if you've been involved in the scene a lot, it's an easy one to forget, in that Moss and I have said this on Beyond the Box. If you haven't checked that out, you should. It is a golden age of modeling we're living in, right? I mean, we're talking about what makes the best company. And we're talking about things now. You mentioned it, John. You expect a tooling now to be crisp, no flash, detailed. If you take an old, again, I'll pull out the Rotodyne. This was the standard of the 60s and 70s, right? And to a large extent, some of the 80s as well. not exceptional, not particularly bad, not particularly good. This is just what was being produced. And you look at it now and compare a modern run-of-the-mill kit, a mid-range kit, say the Airfix Mosquito,
Okay.
1/32 Mosquito, and this doesn't hold a candle in any respect. There isn't a single element of this that even approaches the Mosquito. Nothing. Even if you take the example with the Mosquito, which, okay, the Bombay shape is a little bit wrong. The accuracy isn't quite there. That Rotterdam is not accurate. there are elements on it which are absolutely, completely inaccurate. I mean, the thickness of the doors on the back, I think it was Matt from Model Minutes pointed it out, would be like a Challenger tank armor. Yeah, it's like it could take 120 millimeter round, no problem. It has the standard, the bar has been raised enormously. And I don't know whether that, I mean, part of that I think is because companies have evolved. I don't know how that affects us, though. Do you think we're spoiled now?
Absolutely. If I came back to the hobby, let's say, 84 to 2024, it would be like time travel. You know what I mean? It would be um you could almost say that about anything, but with modeling, yeah, the online, you can get online and you can go to Alex's shop, you can go to, Scale Hobbyist or whatever, and then all of these aftermarket stuff and the number of kits and the number of vendors, and it's mind-boggling, right? If you were to kind of come out of, if you hadn't modeled literally in 40 years, you would just be completely blown away.
Yeah. Well, I think, just going to, again, trying to look at, what is the best scale model manufacturer? And, I picked out, a whole bunch to start with. And then I actually thought about this and thought, well, I'm putting my own bias in by choosing who's going to be looked at, right? So let's go a step back, go to ScaleMates. Let's start off with, how many companies? And then you look at it and you think, oh my God, there are a lot of companies. And it's like, right, well, let's trim it down to the 100 biggest, like most active ones in the 21st century for a start. And you just think, wow, you've got to trim it down. And I think, back in the 80s, it's like, yeah, you can name quite a lot of companies that are around there, but it was really a different time. Because if you think now, half of those companies got stripped out right in round one because they're not making injection molded plastic. But that shows you that there are like almost half of the marketplace, the active marketplace, are people 3D printing kits and selling them, casting resin kits, making pre-made, big companies making effectively pre-made kits. There's just this huge, vast diversification of the industry, which I think is, it's all good for us. So trying to pare it down to look at, okay, we've got 100 companies, we'll pare it down to look at the 12 best. It's just like, how blessed are we?
Right.
And you look at that and, some of those people aren't the traditional people you would expect because the criteria I use, but, that's ignoring people like Heller and Italieri and, who are still producing really nice kits, But it's interesting actually just looking at it to see the different kind of areas. So you have the Japanese manufacturers like Tamiya, like Hasegawa, like Aoshima, and you can see sort of cultural variants coming through. And then you have the Chinese companies. Chinese companies are just putting huge volumes out. They've grown from nothing. Obviously either government funded or private enterprise with government blessing or whatever. They just like, right, we'll have like 10,000 square foot factory there. We'll use CAD. We'll just produce all this stuff. It's just like, wow. And then you have, the smaller companies like, ICM and Special Hobby, and these ones that have sort of grown up since the 90s, gradually establishing themselves and kind of getting that roller coaster momentum. And like I said, Japanese companies which have been there forever, just this slow, continuous growth, in the way that Japanese companies tend to operate. It's really interesting, kind of looking at it in detail and seeing these sort of wider cultural traits come to the fore in the data.
And that's a good point, because it's so popular there, like say in Japan.
Yeah.
Right? Modeling, scale modeling. It's so massive, right? Yeah. And South Korea, what's the
Academy?
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, Academy of, and it's funny, right? Because when I started modeling, I didn't think about, I thought dragon was Japanese. It's not,
Chinese,
obviously,
right?
Chinese. It's Chinese, yeah. And it was only when, for a brief period of time, they were Shanghai Dragon, and it's just like, oh, have the Chinese bought them? It's like, no, they've always been Chinese. It's like I had no idea where Academy was based. It was just, I thought it was American. Because it didn't really matter, right? You didn't really think about it. It was just, Academy. I mean, Airfix you knew was British. Revell you knew was German, even when it was American.
Right.
Italieri you knew is Italian, because it basically tells you in the name, and the logo's got, the flag colors. But outside of that, Tamiya, obviously, from Japan, and Hasegawa, you could tell the Japanese manufacturers because they have Japanese names, right?
Right.
They all end in vowels.
Tsushimi.
Yeah.
I grew up on, we had Monogram, Revell, and Tamiya. That was really it. In the States, I grew up on the West Coast. We really didn't have Airfix. I didn't grow up building Airfix. It was, basically those three. I think I saw a Zvezda kit back in one of those Stalin. What were they called? Stalin, or with the truck with the rocket launcher. I think I built one.
Oh yeah, Stalin's organs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Before I built an Airfix, but that was it. That was the choice. You really had those three. So
yeah, and Eastern European manufacturers had that. They still had that Cold War association, right? That you had. I can't remember the kit's name now, but there were some based in East Germany before the reunification, and of course Novo bought the frog moldings and things. But the quality, the plastic was always super brittle, and the quality was always, suspect and stuff. And then, kind of the end of the Cold War, you had all of these companies start up in Czech Republic and stuff. For me, it was mainly aftermarket stuff. You started seeing companies, well, and Russia as well. Neomega and CMK and Ares, producing resin engines and detail specs and stuff. And it was just like, wow, these are fantastic, and really, really reasonable. If only 30-year-old me could have bought more before the prices of things skyrocketed in the 21st century. And it's just like Zvezda. When Zvezda first came out, it was just like, wow, this is actually an Eastern European company which is making interesting, not quite maybe the same quality as like an Airfix or a Tamiya or Revell kit, but not bad. And some of them really good. And also subjects that nobody else was doing.
Correct. That's it.
It's just like, new Russian maneuverability demonstrator, the S-37, the Bakut, the Golden Eagle. It's like, wow. It's like, I never thought I'd get an injection molded, kit of that for like, what was it, like £18 at the time or something. So, and now, of course,
a U.S. maker to make that.
Right.
During the Cold War. Yeah, I agree.
I just want to say thanks, Brian. I didn't see you in chat until then. I've just seen it. I'll get back to you shortly. So for those of you who don't know, Got Fuels, Brian from Got Fuels, is one of the people organising the tribute build and or distribute it. He would be very modest about it, I'm sure, but he is one of the people that is involved in organising all the decals, decals, however you say it. We've got two sides of the pond here. So.
It works either.
But getting all that together, and I believe there'll be a video going out at some point in the next week or so, Brian. Feel free to comment if I've got that wrong or if I've got it right, in fact. So if you haven't subbed to his channel, please go sub to his channel. Watch out for that. As I said previously, I didn't know Senior personally, never had that interaction. I've gone back and watched a lot of stuff on Hobby Barn, and the outpouring of respect from the community, I think, tells you everything you need to know. So if you want to get involved in that, there is going to be a group build for Senior. He was modeling since 1962, so a lot of, I think one of his phrases was sniffing glue since 62, right, John?
Yeah, that's it.
So a lot of people are doing like 1962 models of stuff, 1962 like cars especially. So if you want to get involved in that, if you don't know about that too much, I say go to Brian's channel, sign up, have a look at some of the streams that have been videos that have been made about that. There's quite a lot. You can see. You probably know about it already, but just in case you guys don't know.
Yeah. Get on over and get subbed to Brian, Got Fuels, and
yeah. So Brian and I have been having a chat about whether it's actually going to be better to get the decals directly from the US or whether they need a distribution point in the UK. So you sent me a couple of WhatsApps, which I'm going to look at in proper detail after this and come up with where you can get that. But very worthy cause. I believe there's still the GoFundMe for Terry's family. Obviously, there's the funeral costs and obviously support for the people remaining. So there is a post which dates back a couple of weeks now, I think, on my channel. You'll also see it on Brian's and others, a link to that GoFundMe. So if you can, go and follow that, check that out. If you can donate something, that would be fantastic.
Let me see if I can post his.
I'll post this one for no particular reason. Can't think why I would post that one. So if you guys don't know, I do have, of course, a model shop, mansmodelmoments.com. I only post routinely in the UK. So if you go there now and you're from Europe or from the US and think, I can't add anything to the cart or I can't check out, it's because of that. Shipping to Europe and to the US is pretty expensive, so I don't offer it as a standard thing because I think it would make me uncompetitive, and I'm not trying to just force everybody to buy stuff from me. But if you do particularly see something that you can't get anywhere else or want to buy from me, please do get in touch. The email is on the shop website, and we can work something out. So I always try and get the best solution for you, whether it's the fastest. It may not be particularly cheap, but I'm upfront about it. I'll tell you what the shipping cost is before you have to make a decision. But yeah, that's if you get to checkout stage and think, well, I can't do this, it's because I don't offer outside the UK shipping as standard. But thank you, Sinzan, for the shout out. That's much appreciated.
And he's got a lot of stuff that's not on the website. So if there's something that you'd like to have or whatever, just send Alex a message. Hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Because he's got to manually put that stuff on his website. And so he's got a lot of stuff in stock that just isn't in that online window.
Yeah, it's just because I'm lazy, So. So when orders do come in, I do try and get them on the website. Sometimes I'll have several orders come in at once, which makes it a little bit more difficult because you want to get them out on the shelves for people to actually buy. And sometimes that's what's happened in the past, which is why I have a backlog to put it there. That's why the Outlaw paints aren't on there. Outlaw paints as well, shipping those outside of the UK, again, it's probably going to be too expensive. You may may find better ways. Interesting post here. So, the telling of a good modeler is someone who can make the Rotterdam into a great finished piece. Now, I would say yes and no. What? I'll hold up on my comments, John. What do you think to that?
I don't know. I just know that the tooling is old, and it's a very antique kit, shall we say? So my
It's of its time, for sure.
And so I know, working with, and I'll just be real brief, working with for Hobby Barn for seniors group build, I'm going to be working with a AMT kit. The tooling is from 1964, and I actually opened back up the box today, and the flash is Ming the Merciless is after it. It's got so much flash, so it's so I appreciate these old tools. It's they can, and I know this is going to be old school. I'm going to really have to work with it to make it look decent. So
yeah. That was a very 20th century reference as well, John. I think most people thinking of the Flash would think of the modern Marvel universe, but I'm with you, Flash Gordon, all the way.
Flash,
he saved every one of us. Well, do you know that I used to actually watch on a Saturday the old Flash, the original Flash Gordon, like the old black and white things. Yeah, they used to show them when I was. I mean, they were ancient by that point, right? I mean, they must have been like 10 times rerun or something. But even as a kid, I remember, like, because they would have the things and then they would cut it, right? Because they used to show them in cinemas, right? And you would wait a week to go to the cinema and see the next episode.
Yeah.
And because they were on TV, and quite often they would run them back to back, because TV scheduling, and when I was a kid, there were only 4 channels, so
right.
They had to fill up the schedule somehow. But you get to a point, and like Flash Gordon was running along, and he would get shot in the back with a ray gun and fall. And it was just like, see what happens next week. And then it would go to the next one. And the same guy would shoot at Flash and he would miss. And it's like, hang on a minute. But of course, they were relying on the audience, like having a week of like, oh, I thought you got shot last. No, I must have misremembered it. And it's just like, but now with the magic of television, you can see, no, they were just pulling a fast one.
That's funny.
It is funny. It's just like relying on the limitations of their technology at the time.
Yeah.
And audience's self-doubt.
You second guess yourself. Oh, well, I guess.
So I think
yeah.
In terms of like this and the telling of a good modeler, I don't agree. I think I don't agree for a couple of reasons. One is, what is a good modeler, right? I don't think any of us get to gatekeep what that is. I hate the phrase where people like say about assemblers and modelers. It's just like, you can be a modeler, whatever, you can whittle something out of a piece of wood and make a model of it, or you can get the latest kit and stick it together and make a model. We shouldn't be looking at divisions in the hobby, right? So I kind of don't agree because of the whole good modeler thing. I think it is it's almost tribalist. It's like divisional. It doesn't include everybody. It's trying to segregate people into different levels, which I think it's not great, right? It's not a great feeling. I'm not saying that you're saying that. It's just, it implies that. The other thing is choice, right? It's like, I think if you want to take something like the Rotterdam, or take the AMT kit that John's doing, or the kit, which I can't even remember what the manufacturer is that I'm going to be building for that tribute build. Which is again, do you have it there? Excellent.
I blacked out. I'm just going to take this, put your label on it, and take it to the post. Yeah.
But that is, again, it's a 1960 something tooling. I think it's actually a 70s rebox of a 60s tooling. And I know it's going to be work, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you know that and you want to challenge yourself, I think that is a good thing to do, right? But you don't have to. It doesn't make you a good modeler to do that, or it doesn't make you a good modeler or bad modeler if you're not doing that. I just think it's what you want to do. It's the journey you want to do. So I have no intention of making this into a showpiece model. You know, I'm not even sure if I'm going to make it. And that doesn't make me a bad modeler. It just means I don't necessarily want to put the work in. You know, it's law of diminishing returns, right? How much am I going to enjoy it compared to, you know, the effort that's going to go in?
And you run a channel too, so you have to. There's that factor as well.
Yeah, I mean, so Matt from Model Minutes, he's doing the Rotodyne at the moment. Oh, don't know whether I should have said that. So he might be doing a Rotodyne at the moment.
There was a rumor.
I'm sure it's not a secret, and he will put it out at some point out in the near future. And it looks really good. You know, from the work in progress stuff he's showing with us is really, really nice. Kudos. You know, I'm almost looking at it and thinking, well, now Matt's built it, I don't need, you know. There's part of me that does look at a kit like this and think, you know, I could like sand off all those rivets. I could redo it all. I could make it fit and everything. And sometimes I'll take a kit and do that. One, if it's something that isn't available elsewhere, you know, like the Rotodyne, you know, or if it's something I've got a particular passion for, or if I just, you know, really fancy it. I kind of did that with the Focke-Wulf 187, the Caro kit, which I used as a bed to demonstrate, you know, mistakes that people make. Mistakes being unintentional things. A lot of people took it that's just like, oh, well, you know, if you're not making a model like that, it's still fine. It's like, yeah, it is. It's when you're unintentionally, you know, leaving big gaps, you know, not noticing them. They're all things that I did. I'm sure they're all things that we all did, right, when we started out, right?
Sure.
And we put it down and you don't notice them until like later on when you're getting better and you think, oh, I didn't sand those seams, you know. Didn't make me a bad model at the time.
You know,
it's just a, you know, that's just where I was on my modeling journey, you know. But so I take the point and the intent, I think, behind the question is, for sure, if you really want to challenge yourself and, you know, challenge your modeling skills to see how much, you know, how good you can get, then yeah, absolutely. Kits like that do force you to do that, right? Because where is it? I've got a Tamiya F35 here. Yeah, because this kit is not going to be challenging those same skills, right? Different skills. I mean, it's a much more complex kit, much smaller parts, much more fiddly, you know, but it fits.
The engineering, yeah.
So let's see, what else do we have in the chat here? Oh, Fenris. Yeah. AMT, Revell, Monogram, Aurora, Lindbergh, Bandai, Takara, Tomy. Yep, Tomy. So Tomy still make models. Tomy Tech is kind of part of them that makes a lot of model train stuff, actually. And yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't consider, well, Bandai is the biggest one, right? And I think I mentioned this again in the video, Games Workshop, right? I think if you took a poll of everybody, you know, 50 people in the chat, is Games Workshop a model company? I think you get a fairly broad range of yeses and nos. You know, they do make a lot of pretty high quality injection molded plastic, but most people don't think of them as a model company. They think of them as a games company. So, which is kind of right. But some of the quality of injection molding that they're doing is better than a lot of model companies. So, you know. Hi, Dave. Welcome. So I've got to catch up quite a lot here. Oh, I'm sure that's not true, Gary. I can't say that was very helpful. just give me your bank details and allow transfers directly. That's
It is a very pleasant, smooth process, and I got mine within a week, and that was the first time. So, because I've bought stuff from Airfix, ProScale, Moss, with his auctions and stuff, and it's normally about two weeks or so. And I think Alex mailed them out the beginning of the week, and I had them by the weekend. It was incredible.
yeah.
So,
It was like 3 days, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah,
UPS
amazing.
did an amazing job. I have to say though, to everybody expecting that, it wasn't cheap.
No, but it wasn't crazy either. It was just more expensive than.
It was quite a big package. I mean, John bought a 1/24 scale trumpeter Stuka, as well as other stuff. So it was massive. It was probably the biggest package I've ever sent out from the shop, actually.
Cool, man.
And it went the furthest. So it had everything going against it in that respect.
That's all right. It got here. It was good.
Oh, now heresy. It's a good job Moss isn't here to hear this. The Revell Rotodyne kit. A pretty good build overall. It is a weird scale though, isn't it, that Revell kit? I can't remember what it is, but it's not 1/72nd, I don't think. I think the Rotodyne from Airfix is the only 1/72nd scale. I'm gonna have to check now. Bear with me while I just get scale mates up and look at the Rotodyne. Unless somebody can tell me in chat quickly. Oh, and if I can spell Rotodyne correctly. Aircraft kits 1/78 scale was the Hella Revell kit. 1/78. What a weird size, which actually makes it slightly smaller. Bizarre. Oh, thanks, Fenris. I didn't blow any secrets. That's good. That's Matt. Matt's work in progress Rotodyne. So Greg was frustrated beyond belief. This again was the Rotodyne. Nearly flew into the bin. Yeah. So again, doing a kit like this is not bad. It just has a different set of challenges, than doing something, than something like this. To me, a 2023 kit, as you would expect, right? Because there are more than 50 years of difference between these toolings. So, if something hadn't changed, you would think, wow, what's happened to our hobby? And props to anybody that takes on a project like that as well. Yeah, so this is kind of how I feel about GW as well. So although I think there are arguments to be made either way, because Games Workshop does make a lot of models, and it's the largest company that we will talk about. It's over £1 billion a year revenue. It's a huge company, massive success. But it primarily is. It primarily is selling models, right? That's what it sells. But it sells them to gamers for a game specifically. Some people, a tiny percentage of that overall figure, will make them just for the sake of making the models, but that's a very small. Most of them are making them to play the game, and a lot of them just get slapped together. They don't necessarily even get painted. Some of them, so they're not the focal point. So I kind of agree that their focus isn't scale models at all. The focus, I think the focus of Games Workshop actually is profit. They're a very profitable company, but they achieve that through their games, and the plastic they sell is kind of a vehicle along that. Since then, you're most welcome, and yeah, I hope the rest of everybody else's week is good, and hopefully see you again, Zinzan.
Take care, buddy.
So this is another interesting one. So I think a lot of us compare ourselves with what we see in model shows.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an unfair comparison we put on ourselves, because, and I think you're right at the end of this, David, right? It's the joy of learning new skills. This is a journey. I always refer to it, and I know it's a bit like, teachers use the learning journey, which is a bit, but ours is a journey because we are developing, all the time. It's like artists. I mean, modeling is a form of art. A lot of people will balk at that or say it's not, but our canvas is 3-dimensional, and we're creating that. We're making it that somebody else has designed the base and everything. But what we bring into it is a creative process. We do put our own, personality into it. I've said this before about, if John makes a model and I make a model, the same model, they will be different.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we do the same scheme, we just both say, right, we're going to do a whatever it is, then one Abrams, right? And it's going to be Operation Desert Storm, and it's going to be this particular tank unit. And you're not allowed any extras, just this box, and that's it. We will still make different models. They will look different at the end, right? Because each of them will have our own techniques and things. And so I'll tell you a story, quick anecdote about, I also used to paint miniatures. And at one time, when I was even more desperately poor than I am at the moment, I took on a commission of painting a couple of Space Wolves units for an army. Right? Games Workshop figures. The guy already had like part of them painted to the standard that he wanted. It is incredibly hard to try to paint minis like somebody else has painted them to try to get the same look to all of them. And I did my best, and they looked, he was really happy. I could see, all I saw were the differences, right? I just, I've tried my best to hit this sort of how they look, but I wouldn't have done them that way if I had my own free reign. I would have done different stuff and different highlights and things. And, the guy used washes where I wouldn't have. And so it's our individual style that we put into all of these. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your models will always be unique to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And be happy with them. It's a hobby,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, that model show standard, it's just like, well, does it matter?
Yeah.
What is model show standard? They vary year to year, and I've heard, see, this is one of the reasons I don't fundamentally like competitions. I don't fundamentally really like the premise of the IPMS, because I hear a lot of this in the background. I once heard, I think it was this year actually, that last year they were saying, oh, the standard of last year isn't really up to the standard of previous years. And it's like, but what does that matter?
Relative to what?
Yeah, it's just like, so do we now compare everything to what's the year before? And, if you did that with anything, with I mean, we do it to some degree, but, we don't. I'm sure in the Middle Ages, they weren't looking back and saying, oh, I remember what it was. It's not really up to the standard of the Romans, is it? Which is a stupid example, right? But
the concept is there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that concept of of comparison. And again, competitions, they're very subjective. There are no again, John, I'm giving away my science roots, aren't I? It's just like, what are you basing that on? It's better in what way?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so a bunch of people think that this is better than that, and it's just like a different group of people might think completely opposite. But again, I think things like competitions, things like saying what a good modeler is, the kind of gatekeeping you see in the hobby, these are all divisive things, and competitions are absolutely fine. If competitions is what you like, then go for it. And it's not certainly for me to gatekeep in that way to say that they're a bad thing, not at all. But they're not my thing for sure. I would much prefer to have a collaborative approach, and I don't need a competition. I don't need to put myself against somebody to see somebody do great work, and you can see it on YouTube all the time. I don't look at Plasmo's channel and think, I've got to do better than that. I'll look at like I watched a night shift video a while ago, and he was doing some stuff with weathering on a truck, and I was just like, that's really, I hadn't thought of doing it in that way. I must try that.
Inspirational.
That's exactly the word. Inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a mindset, that you just come to. I think you have to, and maybe it comes with age. I don't know, John. I bet an awful lot of really cranky old modelers. Maybe it disappears with age. Cranky, I don't know.
We become more Yoda-esque, Yeah, you're right. Plasmo just did that. The P47 Mini or P47 Deluxe Advanced kit, and I watched that because I'm getting that kit, and I'm gonna do it after the Stuka. But that entire video was so instructional and inspirational. And I know in the back of my mind, I'm never going to be able to do that, but it's like, oh, I can try, I can add, let me try to add that to my palette and that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I get, as I say, Craig, I wasn't trying to, please forgive me if I came across as saying it was, a bad thing to do. That's not what I was intending at all. Because absolutely. So I did a video probably, over a year ago on the Revell Corsair, the 1972 tooling, I think it is. Horrible kit. Absolutely dreadful. By today's standards. And Revell are charging the same price as they are for their 2014 tooled Spitfire, same scale. And it's like, I just think it's, and again, I'm going off the tangent of a tangent here. I think it's wrong that they don't say, look, this is a really old kit and this is a new one, and they're the same price. Buyer beware on this one. That's why I like the FX Classics thing, because they are saying, look, you can build a Rototype. It's old. This is not a new kit. Just that's at least honest, But I have that. I did the review of it, and people, the same kind of usual comments that you get. It's just like, oh, you're only a modeler if you can make this fantastic and stuff. It's just like, well, no, that's not true, and that's not the point I'm making. But I did go back and think, I should just build that kit just to show that, yeah, you can make a great kit out of that. And I did start doing that. But it's a project, right? It's going to take a long time. So I 3D printed a replacement engine for it, a double wasp, because the one in the kit is a blob.
Oh.
And there's just no comparison. I've sanded the whole thing, and I've got to go back and do all that. So it's a lot of work. I know when I finish it, it'll be very satisfying, if not just to silence the critics. But I won't have enjoyed it, and I'm not doing it because I, particularly want to do that kit. I also bought the Revell, the Tamiya 148 scale one, because I want to build that as well. and this will be a video probably in about a year's time, or I just want to say, look, yeah, I did this. Here's the Revell kit. Looks okay. This is all the stuff, the work that I put into it, and how long it took. Here's the Tamiya kit that took me like 2 weeks. It looks actually probably better. And I had fun doing that. It's just like, you pay your money and you take your choice. Neither is wrong. Neither is particularly better than
It's just the journey.
others. They're just different. And it's what you want to do. So I absolutely get if you're driven by that kind of, that want to improve, that there are plenty of kits out there to do that, and they don't have to be old, pig's ears. They can just be okay, and you can just go that extra mile and add loads of stuff to them and open panels and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just do stuff out of the box, whatever floats your boat.
Always good to see you, Craig. Yeah, Craig's a good guy. They do those little all of our mail delivery vehicles they're all the same no matter where you go in the country.
Yeah. I would put the counter argument, Fenris, that you look at it, you can tell they're not a car manufacturer. Is it the box is on wheels, for Christ's sake?
You can hear it a mile away. She hears the mail person come, that mail lady, and you can hear them like, I don't know, coming down through the neighborhood. It's great.
Anyways, so Matt just commented that he is indeed building the Rotterdam and it is indeed putting up a fight. Now, were your hands full with the Rotterdam though? That's the
oh.
I also should say, I actually had somebody comment that it should be pronounced Rotodyne.
Not Rotodyne.
But yeah, I don't care. I have more important things to worry about in my life, and there are so many accents around. It's like gatekeeping how you say a particular word of an aircraft that one was built of. Yeah, at a time when received Queen's English was the correct pronunciation, but anybody that made it actually said it that way. But
anyway. That's how we'd say it here in the States. A Rotodyne. Yeah, and not Rotodyne. Yeah, but it is what it is.
Last month, I had a challenge to make a kit from my childhood. It was a Smear Aero MB200. Now you make it a Potest 540 from Mr. Craft. I think that Potest 540 is a Hella kit, isn't it? That Mr. Craft has retooled. Well, not retooled. Has injected. Is the Potest 540 the one with the twin tail? It's quite an elegant looking aircraft, I think. Need to Potest 540. I think if it's the one I'm thinking of. Oh no, it's not. It's a completely different aircraft. I'm completely wrong. Oh wow, that is a. I'll add it to the stream so you guys can see it. If people are not familiar with.
I'm not familiar with either, so.
It is a hideously ugly French aircraft. Wow. That thing flew into the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down, didn't it? Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Thing on its nose. A greenhouse on its nose. Wow.
It's like the Jimmy Durante plane.
French sort of First World War to interwar aircraft. God, they made some ugly things. They made some innovative stuff at other times, but wow. I salute you, sir.
You don't want to put that on your list, Alex, of next kits to build, right?
No.
For the internet.
I'll put it on the list, but it'll be a long way down. Oh God, a trunk plane. That's one way to describe it. It's got a face only Lexi would love. Yes, it's French, so
She knows her French planes. Yep. Tell her.
Yeah. So a lot. So Hella tools get around a lot, and I don't seem to have been particularly careful with them. I mean, I do. No, no. So, you evil people, I already have. It looks like I'm going to be doing German lozenge camouflage on this thing, aren't I? So, no, I'm not doing a Protest 540 on a live build. Stop being evil. Exactly. Oh dear. Yeah. So, a quick thing I just wanted to mention, nothing to do with the topics we've spoken about. Guys may have seen there is a video going out tomorrow. It's only about 6 or 7 minutes long. I just wanted to. I've talked about it a couple of times on live streams. I just wanted to talk about how I've changed my rewards for members and patrons, because Patreon's rubbish. It really doesn't fulfill what it is supposed to. It sounds great, but it doesn't do really what I wanted to. The stuff I've got from it as examples when I eventually got them just wasn't the quality I was happy with. So, and I wanted to make sure that people actually do get rewards. So I've changed the way that I'm doing things. Kind of explain that in the video. And it's also a retrospective, so I'm actually so nobody misses out, basically. So if you've not got anything from the membership, or you don't feel you've got things from the membership, kind of explain what's happened in that. So that's coming out tomorrow. Not a massive video, I say, like 6 or 7 minutes long, just to kind of explain that and talk about what's going forward.
Cool.
Yes, well, you should know, John, as a supporter. Thank you.
No problem. I not yourself, because I think I'm through channel membership, but
Yeah.
I think I support a couple channels through Patreon, and I'm never on Patreon. So, I just support. There's a couple channels I support. James is one, LPJ, and but there's how do I say? There's nothing that I try to sort of get out of that, right? So in other words, I just really, I enjoy supporting James, but I see the Patreon, I get emails, Patreon. I'm never in Patreon. I just never go in. I'm so busy on YouTube. Whenever it comes out, it comes out. So yeah.
I think that's the thing, is that I think when I started the channel 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, in about a month, I think, Patreon was kind of what everybody was using. It's like everybody would have, go to Patreon or buy me a coffee. That was kind of it. But since then, I mean, it was last year, I think, YouTube introduced the memberships. Because Patreon didn't talk in any way to YouTube, it was really hard trying to manage it.
Right.
And they do this like 3-month retrospective thing as to organize it, and then they put tax on top of whatever people's. It's just a really clunky system, and YouTube memberships are much easier because obviously they're linked, and they all take their big cut, of course. But the thing is, YouTube memberships don't offer anything. There's no built-in support. Like, so in Patreon, you can get merch and they'll handle all the logistics of it. Whereas YouTube doesn't touch anything like that. It's just like, if you want to offer something, that's up to you. It's like, so having both, it was just like, really, you want the best of both of those in one. And what they actually offer is the worst of both of those.
Mhm.
So There are ways around it, but I think it's down to the individual creator to do that, and it takes a bit of effort to actually, look at it and say, right, okay, I need to stop all of this, just do this one thing, and kind of remove it out of their hands. Because at the end of the day, the people that have supported you most are the ones you're most likely to disappoint if you don't fulfill on that.
Correct.
The worst thing, I think, is to set, because you have, we all have our ideals of like, oh, I'd like to, do this for my patrons, get a video out every week and stuff. It's just not sustainable unless you're doing it full time, unless YouTube pays enough that you've got 1 million subscribers or whatever, and you can do it as a job, so that you have the time to be able to do that. I think it's almost impossible, and you end up disappointing yourself and the people who have supported you. So taking a step back and just saying, right, okay, this is what we're going to do. Look at it. Let's look at it retrospectively. Let's look at it over a period of time, rather than trying to bang out stuff all the time. It just being, rubbish.
Right.
Oh, a question about the P51 mat. Yes, they are. So I can't remember when it's due out. It's towards I think the mid to end of the year, the P51. But yep, that is still going to be one of the releases this year.
Oh, wow.
It is. I mean, it's a nostalgia build, right? They bought the Stuka out last year, which it's an odd one for me, right? The Airfix big scale stuff like this, when they've been retooling, like the Typhoon and the Spitfire and these fantastic kits, to then bring out the 124 scale old ones, it's like, well, you are really only looking at the people that built it as a child, or as a an young adult or whatever, because, well, as you know, John, there are other scale kits available in that scale of those subjects, so better kits, so it's an odd one. It's an odd one, but I think for a memorial build, for that kind of thing, for nostalgia, or if it's linked to somebody specific, then that's the perfect target market for them, right? But yeah, it is due out. I'm not quite sure when. I think it is like from June or something.
Okay.
It may be a little earlier. It may be to do with D-Day. I can't remember.
What version is that? Do you know?
I think it's P51D.
D. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm going to go for the most popular one, aren't they? So, the one that had a proper engine in it. Not that Allison thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So Terry did the Airfix 124th. And he has so enjoyed that build. He raves about it. So he's motorized it. He's put lights in it and stuff, but he has really enjoyed that Airfix 124th Stuka. Yeah.
We're going back to the silk purse out of a pig's ear thing, aren't we? I mean, I do remember as a child. I think I've mentioned this before on Airfix and Chill, or certainly on my live streams. I received it as a Christmas present, and my dad and I built it together. Really, my dad built it. And we did it in the desert camo, if the like sand and spinach. It was fantastic. I thought it was the best thing ever. The little the MG17 or whatever they had in the back, with the big ball on the bottom to collect all of the shells, and the ammo thing that all moved in the ball mount. The bomb underneath the main fuselage swung down and could come out. I was regularly dive bombed by it because it was hanging on my bedroom ceiling, and it was heavy, so it didn't really get supported that well. So there were multiple times it sort of moved, and that bomb came whistling down. I don't know whether my memories of it though are heavily rose tinted, So yeah, and it's a huge kit though. I mean, a massive thing.
Yeah.
I mean, how much paint are you going to use on that Stuka, John?
Well, so I'm using the. I actually just washed all the parts today. Give me 1 second. Let me move my camera and I'll show you if you'll allow me. So let me see. All right. So right there is I've got the parts, and then I don't know if you can see the box up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I've got all the big pieces in there. So the wings, the fuselage, the engine cowling, and all that. But I got some.
That's a lot of fuss.
Sorry for the shaky camera. So I got Outlaw paints. So I might need more. It's a good, because I got sort of one of each, right? Moss and Jason at Outlaw Paints, they sent me like, I don't know, six bottles. Extremely grateful for, and I'm going to use them on this plane. But I might need to get backup of like, the green, the dark green, and the light blue, the Hellblau or whatever. Yeah. So
is it splinter camouflage, or is it all one color? Because it's an early one, isn't it?
It's the sort of splinter. All right, it's upside down, but it's the.
Oh yeah.
Basically yellow, blue. I don't have the yellow. That's what I need. I gotta try to get some of that Outlaw Paints yellow, and I think I can get it from Brett Marquand at High Altitude Hobbies.
Yeah,
I think he's the retailer here in the States for Outlaw Paints. But yeah, so I'm starting that next because I finished the 2 planes that I had on the bench.
Okay, Fenris, good to see you.
Take care, buddy.
We'll look forward to your and many friends' next project. Yeah, John, you may need something bigger.
The thing is freaking massive. I mean, that box is easily 2.5 feet long.
Oh yeah.
So Alex sent me that. He sent me the P38J, the Tamiya P38J Lightning in 1/48. The Hobby Boss 1/48 P41D, which I finished. That was a great kit. Yeah, that was a massive box.
It was. Okay, folks. Well, we are coming up to 10 o'clock UK time. So I think we are going to end our little soiree, our midweek model meet. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's been great to be able to get people on. John Alec, thank you enormously for coming on. And,
thanks for having me.
And for me taking up your slot that you had previously.
No, it's yours. I haven't done it in 3 or 4 months, so no, it's yours.
And also proving that I can work the technology in at least some rudimentary fashion. So, it was a bit of an introductory one tonight. I think we had a good chat about all kinds of different things. We kind of meandered over a lot of different subjects. But it'd be great to get your guys' input on what you enjoyed, what you would like to see next time. and we'll try and get a panel together a little bit in advance of who's going to be or who may be here, and then maybe some input from you guys about what you'd actually like us to discuss and talk about, and maybe have a little look if there are those Hobby Boss and Trumpeter releases that come out in the interim. Maybe we'll take a little look at those. If not, God only knows when they're going to come out. I hope it's soon. But anyway, thanks guys for joining. Have a great night. Have a great rest of the week, and see you next time.
Take care.
Cheers, everyone.